Okay, you will get your remote cooler in a separate box, and that's what you're going to go after first for this style system. You're going to heed the warning on the outside, which is describing how to take this contents out safely without doing any damage to anything. It basically tells you to remove the white foam and not to hit the switch. Once you take the foam out and you place your unit in place, you're going to need to take these out as well. You are going to fill this cavity up down in here. You will see a sticker on the side, bottom right, which shows you your water level. You're going to fill that up with regular tap water, and then you're going to plug the unit in. When you plug the unit in, you're going to hear a series of clicks and water going. You'll hear it trickling in, it's filling up in here, and then it's going to start producing ice, and it's going to start dropping ice down in here. It'll melt for a while, then eventually it'll fill all the way up. It takes several hours, and it's going to shut off. You will see a picture of what it looks like in your PDF download that we'll send you that shows you the height of the ice in the back side of the cold plate, where it should be when the machine shuts off and sits quietly. Then you're ready actually to start tasting and brixing the system. The startup procedure, once you've had it plugged in, will require you to hit the select button, and you're going to hit the center selection. You'll hit it once, and it'll be here on this light, and then it'll come over in the center section, and then you're going to hit start. And again, it will require you to let it sit and run for several hours before it can be at the place where you can start taste testing or brixing out the system. You will next start hooking up your water supply. With your system, you will have a water regulator, and on the regulator you will be two arrows showing you the direction of the flow. Make sure you install it the proper way. So this is going to go from your water supply line, and then you're going to have your water supply line go to the fittings. As you can see, these fittings are all labeled and all numbered, and we're going to discuss that in a little bit. But one of these is marked main water supply, and you're going to have this as part of your main water supply coming into this, and the water is going to run through this white trunk, and it's going to go in here, and it's going to cool down a little bit, and it's going to come back out. And then there's another fitting on here that says two carbonator brass pump, and that's this pump here on your carbonator. And these are the two style carbonators we use. It'll come in on this side after it's cool, and on this side for this style. And what it does is it chills down and goes into the tank where it meets up with the gas. That's pretty much your water supply. Your water coming out of the cooled line going up to your gun or to your tower for non-carbonated drinks. We'll talk in just a few minutes. Over on the right side of your remote chiller, you will notice a drain plug, and this is designed to allow you to drain out the water bath area when you're taking the unit out of service and you need to service it. There is a little silicone plug on the inside. Do not lose that. If you lose that and you attempt to put this cap back on, it will leak. Be careful about when you remove it, that you do not misplace it. Basically, it comes on, comes off, and that's the extent of how to drain it out. And that's its only purpose. You do not have to hook this up. Again, you do not have to hook this up as a steady drain. This is only for when you take the unit out of service. The next step is to mount your serve pumps and locate where you're going to put the remaining portion of your support equipment, CO2 tank, regulators, and carbonator. Once that's in place, we're going to start attaching the remaining lines that are not being used on the white trunk. One of the things you'll notice is on the end is the fittings are numbered, and these are the syrup pump fittings that are what they call the outbound syrup lines, and these are for shore flow, this style here, and this is a shore flow pump. What you'll do is you'll take these fittings and you're going to slide these in just like this and push this clip in place, and that's how it's going to lock it in place. Now if it's a new pump, the new shore flows do not need to be primed. The shore flows that have been taken out of service and are going back in service, they will often need a small amount of water poured in here, like a Dixie cup size, to help prime it. This side of the pump is the BIB connect. This is going to need to be connected to your bag-in-a-box. This one here is for Coke, depending on what type of product you have. This is going to change in style and color. And this is your CO2 line, which we will talk about in a second. That pretty much concludes the trunk. Now, the only thing we haven't talked about is in case you get flow jet pumps, this SERP fitting will be slightly different. It will go down in the bottom of this, right where it says out, and of course the pump will be mounted like this or like this. It comes in a couple different configurations, but they all have on the bottom where it says out, and this is where your fitting would go, and you would clip this in place. This portion here would have your bag-in-a-box line on it from us, and that would be equivalent to what you see here. This portion is the CO2. Okay, we're going to move on now to the opposite trunk, the black trunk, which is labeled. Now, these are labeled here just like the white trunk was, which just lets you know line number 3 is line number, going in this is line number 3 coming back out. It doesn't mean anything other than just that. You can make this number 3, you can make this one number 3. It really doesn't matter which line is which. It doesn't change its performance. It's just to help you understand what flavors are where once you get these attached to your bag-in-a-box product. So, these lines here are set up with the swivel nuts to go onto the tower. Now we have a couple different dispensers. Obviously, we're not going to put them all up here to explain all of them. This is a 4-flavor tower. We do have it in the 1, 2, 3, and 6 this combination, but the setup's the same. You're going to have on the bottom of the tower, coming out of it, again, the labeled lines. Now these lines are in coordination with what you see, what the technician put on the side. He's got a 1 here, and obviously this would be 2, 3, 4, and that signifies to you this number 4 would obviously be this the SERP line going to this side of the dispenser. Then you would just take these and put these together and screw these together. The important part of this is remember to put your flare washer in place, the right direction, the beveled edge down, and tighten these securely so you do not have any leaks. One of these lines, as you can see here, and of course all these are labeled, by the way, one of these lines is going to be insulated. Now that one there is beyond the insulated trunk. This one here is for your soda water, just like it says. This is going to go up to this one here, which again is insulated as well, and it says to the dispenser or to the gun, and then you're going to put these two together, remembering to put your flare washer in place between the two before you tighten. The last portion of this for the tower is your transformer. On the towers, you will need a transformer. It will come with your unit, and it will have 2 markings where you are to attach your wires, just like here, onto those 2 markings, and then you will need to plug this into an outlet. The other style of dispenser is the gun. The gun has a slightly different look on its lines. What it does is it has an input fitting rather than the swivel nut, but this concept is still the same. You're going to have, coming out of your trunk line, you're going to have something that looks like this. One's going to be marked for your soda water, and the other one's going to be marked 1 through whatever flavors you have. The only confusing part is the numbers that are on the manifold. You do not want to get confused thinking number 1 needs to go in number 1 on here. The reason this is done this way by this manufacturer is it matches the sequence of buttons. This is supposed to be this, telling you that number 1 is a certain button on here based on the gun design. This is a 10 button. You could have an 8, or you can have something that's larger. This diagram here and these numbers are only for telling you what SERP is going where here. Our numbering is totally different. That's to help you understand what pump you have and where that line is coming out of the cooling device. If you follow the stickers and follow the diagram, you're going to get this diagram again in the download that looks something like this, where it gives you a clear understanding that this is your water, which is the W, this is the soda, which is the S, and then the series of letters or numbers which tell you which is going where on the gun. Again, once you get these figured out and put in place, you would slide this piece into the manifold, having the quick clip pulled up, You're going to slide it in like that, and you're going to push the quick clip down, and it's going to lock that thing in place just like that, so it can't come out. Be careful about moving these around, because you could easily crack this white portion, and you will start to develop leaks if you don't treat this gingerly, or if you don't have it attached. This is the reason why you have these holes on here, is to attach this to some solid surface, so you don't have to worry about these lines moving around and this thing moving against it. The last portion of the setup, we'll be talking about CO2, startup procedures, and bricksing. Okay, we've included a mini installation kit with all of these systems to allow you to custom design your hose length to make it as short as possible. Once you have your cooling device in place and you have your dispenser mounted, attempt to shorten these lines as short as possible by cutting them back and reattaching them to the actual fitting and using the clamps that we've provided. The shorter this line is, the better the quality of product. So we make it fairly long so it accommodates a variety of settings, but at the end of the day, you need to make it as short as possible. The next stage is to hook up your gas line and gas components. You will have in your bag the CO2 line, which will be all coiled up and wire tied. There's several fittings on here instructing you where they go. The first place you're going to go is you're going to grab your primary regulator and you're going to attach it to the bottle using your CO2 nut. Be very careful not to do any damage to this washer. Get it in place in here. It needs to be there to prevent any leakage, and then you're going to attach this onto here. Once you have this attached to your bottle, you're going to attach your hose to the bottom portion here. Make sure you put this flare washer inside the correct way, beveled edge down, and fix it on here tightly, securely. And the next stage is you're going to run one of these leads. One will be going to your carbonator, and the other goes to your pump. So if you have this carbonator, this style with your system, you're going to attach it here just like it instructs you to. Again, using the flare washer, attaching it securely. The second place you're going is, on this type of carbonator, you're going to go here, where it says gas in. The second place you're going, and final place, will be to your pumps. For this style pump, you see that these are in series. This is all one line, going all the way down here, and then this would attach to a secondary regulator, and you would hook the other side to this side of the secondary regulator for your incoming gas. Again, using your flare washer and tightening it securely. A side note that these CO2 in series, do not turn your gas on yet. But once you do turn the gas on, all these pumps will take off at once. So make sure the product is hooked to all of them. If not, we need to go into detail about how to disconnect this CO2 line, just like I'm pulling out there and pulling it out, and that'll disable that pump and allow these ones still to run without losing any gas. The last type of pump, or the other type of pump that we use, is the flow jet. And your CO2 fitting will come in the bottom here in this brass, where this brass port is. Very much the same concept as the SureFlow, and it'll be either running in series this way or this way. And you will attach, obviously, your secondary regulator to this hose that we showed you on this series of SureFlows. What you want to do during the last section of this is, once we go into the startup procedures, we are going to do a leak test just on this gas line that we showed you all the way down here. Anywhere where there's gas running, that's where you're going to be checking for leaks during the startup procedures. Okay, during the startup procedure, once you've got your system all assembled, we're going to go after our water supply first. We're going to turn our water on. We are not starting the carbonator yet. That means we're not plugging it in. And we're going to open what they call the pressure relief valve, which is here on this style, and here on this one in the upright position, and you're going to let this thing fill up with water. It's going to push out any excess air that's in here, and then you're going to see water squirt out the side. When that happens, you close it back down. That means your tank is now full. It's safe to plug your carbonator in. Nothing will happen. You will think there's something wrong. It'll just sit there. That's the way it's supposed to be. You'll hear it go on in a minute as soon as we go through some other procedures. The next step on this is to plug your tower in, if you have a tower, and activate the valves. Make sure your valves are clicking internally. You'll hear them click when you push the lever or hit the button. Then you're ready to turn your gas on. Now, the gas is a little tricky. We do not want to have our secondary regulator set, so there should have been no settings on this as of yet, because that's going to control our pumps. We're going to go after setting up the carbonator gas-water ratio first. So once we get our gas turned on, we're going to make the adjustment by unloosening the lock nut here and start turning this in, this flathead screw, using a flathead screwdriver, and you're going to notice this needle start to move up. Just like it instructs you on the dial, you're going to set this at 100 psi. That setting, again, is for here, for the carbonators. Once we have that set, we're going to go over to our gun or to our dispenser, and we're going to start hitting the valves, activating the valves, and you're going to notice water start to come out. And after you dispense about 4 or 5 cups, maybe three or 4 cups, the carbonator will turn on. And when it turns on, stop dispensing, let it recover and fill itself back up. It'll take a few seconds to do that, about 12-15 seconds, and then it'll shut off again and sit there quietly. And you do it a second time. And by the third time, you will notice a lot of effervescence coming out of either the nozzle of the gun or the nozzle of your dispenser. That means that we're already should have good carbonation. Now, what happens during this process is that on the smaller remote, it starts melting the ice real fast because you're running it at a much higher rate during startup. So you got to give it a chance to recover. This is not how you're going to use it during its normal application. This is only during the time that where you first set it up. You're running a lot of product through it, and you're melting the ice real quickly, and you got to give it a chance to recover to get the full taste quality of the product. The next step will be to hook up your SERP pumps. So the pumps are hooked up. We're going to make sure that each one of these has a product connected to it, whether it be Coke or Coke products or Pepsi products or generic products. If you do not have a product for one of these pumps, again, you need to remove the clip down here, which slides out of the way, and it allows you to remove the fitting. This little needle stops the gas from coming out, and it disables that pump, though it does allow you to run the ones that are still plugged in. So again, if you do not have product, disable that pump. Otherwise, you'll do damage to it. Now, when it comes time, everything's set up, and you got your going through this whole process, it's time to set this dial. This is a little different. You have a little lock nut down here, as it looks somewhat similar to the primary, but you undo the lock nut, and then you will turn this flathead screw in, and this little needle is going to go up to around 50 or 55 psi, just like it's instructed, and you'll hear the pump start to pop. You'll start making these popping noises, which is totally normal, and you're going to see syrup start to move up the BIB line, the bag-in-box line, and then it's going to move out and go up that clear line, go through the cooling device, and come down and come out to your dispenser. So whether it be a gun or the tower, you're going to start activating the buttons that those syrup lines are going to let the air out. Once you see the liquid start to come out, you move on to the next one, and you do the next one. It's a good practice, so you don't get overwhelmed if you have a bunch of different pumps, is to do one at a time. Disconnect them and make sure that you don't get overwhelmed with the thing going popping and carrying on, and it gets a little crazy, specifically if you have any leaks. So it's just better for you as a newbie on the startup procedures is to make sure that you do one pump at a time, checking for leaks, checking for any syrup leaks, making sure everything's secure and everything's clamped right and everything's attached correctly, so you don't have a mess on your hands. The last step of the procedure, well, let's go over flow jets first. Flow jets, again, the same principles in play. You're going to have either flow jets on the board, or they're going to be mounted this way. You're going to have, again, a fitting in the bottom. And this particular model lets you slide a clip out, and then you take the fitting out, and there's that little needle valve similar to this style, not letting any gas come out. They also make this version with a little Phillips head clip Phillips head screw and a clip that slides in and out that holds this in place. It's just two different designs that they put out. But the same principle's in place. You have your bag-in-a-box line, which will be attached here. That needs to be hooked up to your SERP. This is your CO2, and if you don't have SERP hooked up to your pump, make sure that you disconnect it and pull the fitting out of the pump so it doesn't want to operate. Okay, now that you got your carbonator started with gas, you got your pumps going, now it's time to protect your investment, which is your gas in your tank. You do not want to let that get out in the air unnecessarily. So let's spray it all down with some type of either glass cleaner, or mix up what's better yet is a soapy detergent diluted in a spray bottle, and you're going to spray these areas, anywhere where your line is connected, all the way down here, all the way to your secondary regulator, anywhere where that gas comes in contact, you're looking for leaks. I mean, you can even on this style, you know, spray these. This is a gas line as well, so you can even spray there and there, just looking anywhere where anything might not be secure. If you see any bubbling or excessive bubbling, of course, we're also going to check the gas line going on the carbonator tank. If you see any bubbling, make sure you address it at that point so you don't lose any gas unnecessarily. The last leg of this is brixing the system, making sure that your product tastes the way you want it to. You can do this to taste, or you can do it with a Brix cup and syrup separator, which you can find online. The procedure is quite simple. What it is you're just adjusting the ratio of syrup to the soda water or plain water. And for the gun, this is how it's done. You have two different types of manifolds. You have what they call a raised cone manifold, which they're kind of pointy and they sit up high, or the flat manifold here, which looks more similar to this style. You have two different settings. One is a shut-off setting here that actually turns the liquid completely off if you turn this like this, going up this particular channel. But this is the one we're focusing on. These little nylon screws down here, they have a little slot to allow you to increase or decrease the flow of syrup going up through the gun. Now, again, you could do this to taste. It's the syrup side that you really want to focus in on the most to increase or decrease the sweetness for your product. The other way to Brix using the dispenser and an electronic valve is you will need to remove the faceplate and cover of your valve, and it'll expose the valve body, and you will see two settings on here. It'll require a Allen wrench to turn these, and you can see up close on this metal plate the letters S, Y, and SO, one standing for syrup and the other standing for soda water. Again, it'll be the syrup side that you're going to adjust or focus in on to increase or decrease the sweetness for that flavor. If you have a different type of valve on your machine that does not look like what we showed you here underneath here, contact the office and they will send you a separate 1-minute video on how to properly adjust the syrup and soda water ratio on it for Brixing for that style valve. We do use more than one, but this is one of the ones we use most frequently, or styles of valves that we use most frequently on towers.